for you to find if he did do it. This is what's important for you to know. If you can't be the voice of whether he did or...
And over time, because I'd already done research into Von's story and got in trouble for it, I was kind of thinking like, I can't believe he is still out here saying this stuff, saying more stuff, and just like, you know, I was watching it thinking any day now this guy's going to catch the RICO and get arrested surely, and that's just as a fan. And so I was honestly a big fan of Von's music. You know, it was heartbreaking to find out that he died.
But as far as King Von, he didn't have enough money to run away and just check out the game. He didn't have that kind of money. And you're talking to me about tweets, and it's almost disrespectful, but I'm a content creator, so I know I gotta deal with this, right? It's cool. I accept it. But bro, I'm telling you from experience, I had to come out the trenches, I come out of this. These don't have the money you think they have, and I'm the they used to come borrow from. When did you find would you say you are infatuated with King Von?
I'll be honest, I would.
Anytime we talking, ain't nobody, listen, nobody really from my culture gonna sit next to you and say Von killed anybody. Understand that.
That I agree, and I think that's disgusting.
Why?
Because you've got 7 people who allegedly lost their lives at the hands of this man, and I think they deserve justice, or at least closure.
Closure don't come through you though when you in the UK, homie.
Disrespecting them by denying the facts.
Listen, this is the problem I even have with 1090. Closures don't come through you. Closure for them folks don't come through no white man in the UK, with all due respect.
And, you know, I'll just be real with you. You know, I came from a place that was very white. You know, there weren't really many black people growing up where I grew up. You know, we probably had like one black dude in our school, realistically. And my homie just said to me, like, well, you know, why don't you take some of those stories that you're always telling people and do it in the video, like your Russ video? And it's kind of funny because at the time, I said to the guy, I was like, I don't think people are going to rock with this nerdy white guy with glasses talking about these, you know, real ass hip hop stories. And I kind of put it off. And then eventually I just said, you know what, let me make a story. Let me make a hip hop history video, see how that goes. And I did the video about how Jay-Z shot his brother when he was 12, and just kind of telling that story. You know, that was just the story that really stood out to me, of, you know, hearing those lyrics when I was a kid and thinking, wow, you know, that's crazy. That's a circumstance, like shooting your brother when you're just 12. Like, that was something completely out of my conception, and it was an interesting story.
Would you say obsession is not healthy?
Probably not. No, and you know what? I would say that in general, I think, you know, I don't want to. I mean, look, I can throw my hands up and say I think I probably even before I made the video, I think I was obsessed with King Von's music, because there was a time when all I wanted to listen to was Von.
Whatever this culture has, I've endured it, right? So when I'm speaking to you, I don't hear hip hop. I hear you obsessed with the criminal aspect of the culture. I'm telling you, I'm a listener, so I'm not someone that's just gonna say these things as a I got you moment. I'm not into that, right? We having conversation. I'm literally listening to what you're saying. That particular part of it seems to what draws you in, because the way Jay-Z raps is nothing like the way King Von raps, yet you are obsessed with both of them.
You know, just to be completely honest, I don't think King Von is necessarily someone to look up to, because I think that you've got someone like Jay-Z where he beat the odds and he broke the cycle, and he got out of that situation, became a millionaire, focused on his business, built billion-dollar businesses, became very corporate. Whereas I think if you contrast that with Von got out of the streets, became a millionaire, but it would seem, based on the research that I did, that Von simply was more interested in the beef. He wanted to keep funding the street war. He wanted to arrange hits.
That's what I would disagree with you, because from outside of our culture, you cannot speak to what he was interested in. I keep telling them, best conversations in the world, best podcaster in the world. I want to welcome every single person that has clicked this video. I go by the name of Big Loon. We have TrapLore Ross on this Up There podcast today. Dynamic conversation. But first, I need to tell everyone that's watching, come to patreon.com. It's Up There podcast right now. We have boatloads of content. If you enjoy what you're seeing today, we have so much more to offer on Patreon, and that's where we park it. That's where we talk to the fans. That's where we upload every piece of content that we do. I want to thank everyone The only way you can find It's Up There podcast video is on patreon.com. It's Up There podcast. Today we had TrapLore Ross. He compared King Von to Jay-Z. I tried to explain to him that we've been put in a situation where we've been not only encouraged but incentivized to exaggerate criminal culture onto our loved ones. And so sometimes we find ourselves between that rock and that hard place. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. TrapLore Ross is someone that I enjoy his content. His docu-style approach to things, to me, brings a certain flavor to the game. So we definitely appreciate it. But this conversation was 3.5 hours long, and I promise you, you don't want to miss any part of it. Not one part of it do you want to miss. The conversations are that dynamic on It's Up There podcast. I continue to prove over and over again that we will bring the best conversations in the culture. Again, from the center of my soul, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank every single person that's clicked this video. Head to patreon.com right now to keep up with the vibration. This will be the biggest podcast in history. I want to thank y'all. Let's get to the show. Let's get it.
I got time to... Right, 1 second.
Yo, welcome. You know who it is, Big Loon. We got TrapLore Ross today. We're going to be talking about a lot of things. You know, it's a lot of information to be spoken about. It's a lot of game to be had. He's been instrumental in a bunch of things that I've took a liking to. But I do think that there's some pushback that needs to be had. This dude is a content creator of the highest form, right? Over the last couple of days, they've been kind of mashing him up with 1090 Jake. He's a little different than Jake, though. He actually is a content creator, like, and I'll get to some of his way of coming in the coach and how he got here and all of that. But it's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a great conversation. He's been welcoming to all questions and all criticism, and he's been able to sit with people like academics. King Von's old manager, Adam 22. A lot of those people I've had on my platform as well. But, you know, I'm Big Loon. So for those of you that's new around here, which I don't know if anyone that has not saw my face, I'm the dude that is taking over, right? When we talk about podcasting, I'm the guy that went and got a couple of deals. I did Lil Baby's rollout, Moneybag Yo rollout. So I'm one of the biggest, you know. And also the real ones check in with me. So if you guys got questions, if you guys want to interact with the conversation, it's definitely a situation where we're gonna definitely let you guys in on it. So I am here. What's going on, my guy?
What's good, man? Good to connect. Good to be here finally. Sorry it took me so long to settle and get to you, but I'm here now. I'm excited to talk, man.
It's all good, man. I've been seeing you making your rounds, so I know you've been a busy guy after that King Von thing came out, so I know how that works, definitely.
Yeah, it was crazy, man, because, you know, I've been doing this for a few years, but I never had attention on this level. You know, I had a lot of different people asking me for interviews, for appearances, for debates. So it's been a lot to handle, but I got to shout out Adam 22, man, because he told me I got to check in with you. He said I got to make sure that this one happens. So
that's my
guy. I mean, I'm here.
Yeah, that's my guy, Adam. That's my guy, man. I went out there and dealt with Adam. We talk behind the scenes all the time. Adam's running a multi-million-dollar business. I'm running a multi-million-dollar business. So we talk all the time about those things. Shout out Adam. Shout out No Jumper. He's had it rough here lately.
It's been up and down for him, man. You know, I think it's been it's like you say, you know, it's tough. You know, I'm not a multi-million-dollar business yet, but you know what I'm saying, I'm still grinding. I'm coming a long way over the last few months, but I look up to Adam a lot, and you know, I can tell that his operation, there's a lot going on. You know, a lot of people to keep happy. So I know it's been a tough situation for him the past few months, but you know, I mean, I got love for Adam. I got love for all of the guys that, you know, were on No Jumper and aren't anymore. You know, it was really sad to kind of see that breakup happen, but you know what I'm saying, I love all those guys and I know they're going to keep winning. So
them, you know,
my
guys, AD, them my guys, Adam, my guy. You know, it's business at the end of the day. you know, me and Adam talked the other day. I said, yo, you took a hit, but he just got to basically find his chicken sandwich. You know, like Popeyes, like the menu was the menu, but when they introduced that chicken sandwich, the line was wrapped around the building. So now he has to just figure out what that is to his audience. And I believe he has an opportunity to do so. So it'll just be a process of finding what that new niche is. He may have to walk completely away from, you know, what he was doing at first with those guys, right? And just try to plug more people in. He may have to kind of reimagine what he wants to do on camera. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, you know, I think what's good is that he seems to have, you know, checked in with some new, interesting people. You know, I think he's got Caught, Brick Baby. You know, I'm a big fan of Brick Baby, and I think he's great on camera. So, you know what I'm saying? It's a good opportunity for new talent to come through. You know, I'm still watching Back on Fig, Community, but, you know, new talent on No Jump is interesting too, man. So it's kind of good to see what's going on. Obviously, it's tough, but hell, man, you know, there's a lot of podcast beefs over the year. You know, the big whole Joe Budden breakup was obviously a big thing I was into at the time. So, yeah, it ain't easy running a podcast out here.
That's where I got on you from. And I want my audience to know, because I know they want me to like, and we're going to have some conversations about all of the King Von and some of that shit. But I know they want me to get him, Loon. Like, talk to him about this shit, Loon, because you the guy. And we'll get to talk about it. But I do want people to know that I do respect what you do, right? I remember when I first saw you on the Joe Budden podcast breakup, I said, oh, this dude, I actually pitched you to a big company. And I just didn't reach out to you just yet, but I'll talk to you behind the scenes about a few things. But, you know, the way you do that documentary style thing is just, I really appreciate that, right? I want you to know that. And that's before the King Von thing. Now, the King Von thing, it sent waves through the culture. Because
I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. It was more than I was bargaining for.
I know it. Tell me your upbringing before we get to all of that stuff. Tell the people where you from, how you were born and raised, things like that.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to talk about that. So I was born in London, or sort of like an area that's sort of the south of London. Some people say it's not London, some people say it is, but it's an area called Croydon, which is kind of you know, it's got a little bit of a reputation. But, you know, at the same time, you know, I lived there till I was about 5 or 6. And then my family relocated to a very small town on the south coast of England. You probably never heard of this town, but it's a town called Bognor, Regis. It's a very small town. It's by the seaside, by the beach. You know, I'll be honest, it's not a very diverse town. You know, it's sort of a very kind of simple British people, not to disrespect them, but it's, you know, it's a small town, you know, small opportunities, not a lot going on there. But the funny thing is, man, you know, I grew up loving hip hop, and where I'm from, it's not a very hip hop place. You know, where in the UK, you know, London's really the big place for hip hop. But I moved out of London when I was very young. But fortunately, I grew up just when the internet was really kind of hitting. And so I was a young kid, you know, 9-10 years old, on the internet, downloading music, listening to people like Jay-Z, 50 Cent, Eminem. And, you know, my parents didn't understand. I had 2 older brothers that were super into hip hop. And really, I was just like an internet baby. You know, I was kind of getting raised by rappers on the internet, listening to all of these stories, you know, the success, the danger, the lifestyle, the ups and downs. Like I say, people like Jay-Z, you know, listening to his story coming from the Marcy Projects. Where I was growing up at the time was just, you know, is the complete opposite. You know, no pun intended, but it was black and white, day and night, what I was living to what I was hearing in these songs about people like Jay-Z, the DMX, Eminem. It was fascinating to me, honestly, and I was just in love with hip-hop. You know, I didn't have many friends that liked hip-hop, but like I say, I grew up in a very small, boring town. You know, not much happened. You know, there wasn't much going on.
So what would you say? What would you say? Because I know your love from hip hop is there. I think a lot of people share that across the world, right? Hip hop is just such a magnet, right? It's something that draws people to it. But it's our culture, right? So where did you gain your understanding of it? Not your love for it, but your understanding, because that's a little different. And that's when you get into the weeds, right? Your love for it could have you speak on something that you may not understand. So now we got to figure out where the understanding of hip hop and that culture comes from, seeing that you did grow up in an area that really didn't have all of what we've been through, right? Like me. Did you ever do backwards flips on mattresses or play football up the hill or knick-knock, or do you even know what knick-knock is? Or like, you know, some of these things what our culture grew up in, it's like, where did you get your understanding of it? Was it through the music?
Is knick-knock, is that like when you knock on the door and run away?
Yes.
type shit?
Yes.
In the UK we call that knock down ginger.
Okay, so it's different verbiage. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll be honest, man, you know, like I say, you know, it begun with the music, and really it was, you know, it was another world to me, I'll be honest, you know, and I think you make a good point. You know, I understood the music, but I didn't understand the culture. You know, I'd never been to some of the places I was hearing about in this music. It was only through the internet, you know, listening to the songs and like reading the lyrics. You know, when you get like back in the day, you'd get a CD, you'd actually buy an album, you know, like the Blueprint or something on CD. And sometimes you might have, or on vinyl, and it might have all the lyrics, you know, in the booklet or stuff like that, you know. And I would really study hip hop and the rappers that I was into, and honestly, just the details, you know. And for me, I think it was actually like a case that I kind of knew I didn't have that cultural understanding of the music. And I was really just trying to learn as much as I possibly could. You know, I think I was always just really hungry and thirsty to know about hip hop. Like, these artists were inspiring me, and you know, I wanted to learn more about Jay-Z's past. I wanted to know what's it like in New York. You know, what is the Marcy Projects like? What's the history of these places like? And really, just between listening to the music, you know, doing research on the internet, that type of thing, you know, I was just obsessed with hip hop and these rappers that I idolized. And then over the years, you know, I just learned more about it. And, you know, it's kind of an interesting transition, because when I was 18, I moved to London. I kind of moved back to like the center of London. And, you know, London's interesting because, you know, unlike where I grew up, you know, London is very multicultural. You got a lot of people from different backgrounds, you know, black, Asian, you know, obviously there's a big Asian sort of community in the UK, you know, people of Indian and Pakistani descent, especially as well, like Afro-Caribbean people from, you know, different areas, different countries in Africa and stuff like that. So it was interesting for me. I kind of moved back to London, and, you know, I'll just be real with you. You know, I came from a place that was very white. You know, there weren't really many black people growing up where I grew up. You know, we probably had like one black dude in our school, realistically. And, you know, when I moved to London, it was just more multicultural. You know, I would like to think of myself as pretty open-minded. You know, the rappers and the people I idolized growing up, a lot of successful black men.
How can you be open-minded if you didn't grow up around us? Like, how do you develop that?
It's an interesting one, because I think for me, because I listened to so much hip-hop music, I think I was just open-minded to black culture in general. And it wasn't necessarily just hip-hop music, like black comedians too. I used to love Def Comedy Jam, Dave Chappelle, like way back, you know, before. Obviously Chappelle was always big, but like where he's at now, you know, when I was a kid, it was like early Chappelle show. He was doing like Live at the Fillmore, Def Comedy Jam. And I guess I was just really, I just liked black culture. I found black comedians funny, and I found a lot of white comedians not as funny. Or it's funny because it's like, I can't really say I related to it more because I didn't live that experience. But at the same time, you know, all I would listen to is hip hop music. I didn't relate to pop music that my friends were listening to at school. I couldn't get into it. I didn't like it. I wanted to listen to Jay-Z. I wanted to listen to DMX. I wanted to listen to Nas. And, you know, to be honest, I guess it's just a case of like, that I would probably say there were racist people, you know, where I grew up. It is a very white, closed-minded place.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's focus on the words, right? Because you say that, yo, I was open-minded, but where I'm from is racist people. And so at some point you want us to believe that you're the only one that came out of there without the races on them. You see what I'm saying? Now, I don't know, yeah. But for the sake of conversation, we got to have a conversation. If you come from a place where it's one black dude in the school, how do you get from that to speaking on black culture? And then number two, my second question would be, let's focus on the words of open-minded or infatuated. Were you just infatuated with culture? Because I was infatuated with my own culture as a youngster. Like you say, Def Comedy Jam, the rap stuff. But for you to be open-minded would kind of speak to an understanding. You see what I'm saying? Open-minded, does it speak to engaging with, or like listening to, or, seeking after. It kind of open-minded, in my opinion, speaks to an understanding of that culture. So help me with those two questions.
Yeah, I guess the way I see it is it's just like, I gained a lot of understanding and knowledge about hip hop through listening to hip hop music. It was the only genre that I wanted to listen to. I think, and I don't think it's necessarily fair to say if I'm from an area that's like predominantly white and there are a lot of racist people that necessarily makes me racist. I left that area. I moved to London.
It doesn't make you racist, but you do come from, your environment does dictate your outlook, right? And it's hard for me to believe that you can come from a place where you see no black people at all, and not that you're racist, right? I don't want to say you're racist because I don't think you're racist. I really believe you enjoy our culture. But I think your understanding of some things that happen in the culture can be off a little bit. And that's why we're going to have a conversation to kind of see where we live at. Like, what can we do to either figure out, oh, yeah, fuck, I didn't think about that. Or, no, I thought about that, but this is just how I look at it, right? So I'm thinking when you come from, and I don't want to hang up on this a lot, but if you come from a place where you see one black person, right? First of all, how did you discover hip hop? Was it the internet?
Yeah, so first off, let me just jump back. I think I just want to make it clear, like, I don't necessarily really agree with that premise as far as, like, if you're from an area that is, say, predominantly white, that you're going to be racist. For example, like, if you come from an area that's high crime, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a criminal. You know what I'm saying? So
but
I don't think you
won't see
judge the person by their environment they're from, if you get what I'm saying. So it's kind of like, I just want to make it clear, like, I don't think that me being from an area that's predominantly white necessarily should lead to like an assumption being made about the type of person I am. I want to be judged on my actions and the content of my character rather than where I'm from or the color of my skin. You
will be. What I'm saying is I'm not speaking to your behavior. I'm speaking to your understanding. So I'm speaking to, if I grow up in a house where domestic violence is prevalent, when I come outside of that home, I don't see that as abnormal. When I see a man fight a woman, I don't see that as abnormal because that's all I saw growing up. So I'm speaking about your understanding, not your behavior. You're talking to me about your behavior. I'm talking about if I come from a place where I've seen no bugs all my life, and then I come in your house and see a bug, I'm going to react in a certain way because I have no understanding of it. It's going to be like, oh, what the fuck is that? I never seen that. Oh, how nasty are y'all to have those? What the fuck is that? Like, it could be something that caused that. It could be your neighbors. It could be your neighbors are nasty to cause that bug. I have no understanding on bugs at all. So all I know is I've never saw it. So I'm more so speaking about your behavior. I mean, your understanding, not your behavior. Because again, I want to say that you look at our culture and you enjoy it. You participate in it. Like I'm telling you, I've watched your content, bro. You bust raps. Like you're not just some guy who, is just flavorless and just jumped into this. Right. But your understanding is what we just going to live at a second. But to that, what do you say? Because again, I'm speaking of understanding, not behavior.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I think it's really clear to like try and communicate is, the environment that I grew up in, maybe that was predominantly white. I didn't feel like I fit in. Not that I identify as black or something crazy like that, but all the artists that I was listening to were, not all of them, because you've got plenty of, successful, good white artists that I was listening to growing up, people like Eminem or, other kind of white rappers that were popular. But the people I idolized were predominantly black. I was a young white guy in a predominantly white area, but the posters on my wall were successful black men that I looked up to and idolized. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't have that experience. I didn't grow up in an area that, I didn't grow up in a predominantly black area with some of the, maybe, for example, the socioeconomic problems that, might go on in some of those areas traditionally, right? So I'll be the first to throw my hands up and say I haven't been through that struggle. But for me, I think as a youngster, when I wasn't in that sort of area, I think the music was like a window for me to understand black people and the black struggle. I don't pretend that like I know what it was like to grow up in the Marcy Projects, but I think listening to, nothing but Jay-Z songs growing up, it gave me that sympathy. And then, I knew black people growing up. I would never be judgmental of someone based on the color of their skin, even though maybe at school, there were racist people at my school. And, I didn't fuck with that. But once I became an adult and I turned 18, I moved to London. As I was saying a minute ago, London was very multicultural. I begun to make friends with a lot of black people. And what I actually ended up doing when I was in London as a job is, I started making music videos and making music videos for rappers. I guess the majority of the artists that I shot music videos with were black. But you know, I never met black people with a closed-minded perspective. You know, I was always just in love with hip hop music. If I met somebody that was black, white, Indian that also loved hip hop music, we had a connection. We had something to talk about. I can't say that, you know, I grew up in the tough areas.
And I want to be clear too, Trap, is that when I say us, and this is what I'm saying about your understanding even of our culture is a little off. Because I'm a rich black man, right? So when I say black men, we don't need sympathy. You know what I'm saying? There's no, like, all of us ain't come from, or all of our circumstances are not in a place where people need to sympathize for us, or, you know, be like we're some sort of victims. Like we you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, I know you say it gave you a window into, listening to Jay-Z gave you a window into black culture so you can kind of sympathize. First of all, a lot of the rap shit is fake. A lot of the talking from raps, and I know from outside of the culture, y'all don't, you may not get that. Oh, that's what I want to say. Let me go back. We'll get to that in a second. When I say hip hop, or when I say the tough area, when I say our culture, I'm not talking about just the criminal element, right? That's why I was talking to you about maybe barbecues, or, you know, football up the hill, or maybe cookouts, or, you know, just other things that we do in our culture that lends us that understanding, even when we talk to each other. Like in my neighborhood, I don't play like this, but in my neighborhood, for some strange reason, they talk to each other and they'll say, "Bitch, what you doing, bitch? Bitch, bitch, what you got?" Like, if a police officer or someone is listening to that, that sounds violent. When that's not even that. You have to be of the culture to understand how they can use a word like that to each other and it's not causing that level of violence. You can't get that through hip hop. You see what I'm saying? That, and I mean, when I say culture, it's not just music. It's fashion. It's jargon. It's lifestyle. It is some hardship. It is some what we've been through, right? I talk like this. I walk like this because of what I've been through, you know. And so it's more than just hip hop that makes us what we are. And so I'm trying to help you get a real window into the culture, because hip hop is just a little bitty facet of our culture. And when you're dealing with our rappers, you're dealing with more than a hip hop artist. You're dealing with a young black man from our culture. You see what I'm saying? And I know sometimes from the outside it's just, oh, another rapper blew up. Another rapper. It's like, no, he's speaking culture language. He's saying some culture shit, whether it's right or wrong, and how you interpret it is what we want to talk about a little later. But, you know, to that, what do you say?
Well, you know, I think it's interesting because I think if we go back to like what I said at the start, you know, it's not just about hip hop. Like I say, you know, I grew up just into things that I guess would be seen as black culture. You know, it's not just hip hop. Like I say, I grew up watching comedy, like Def Comedy Jam. People
that's
like
us. That's black culture.
DL Hughley, Dave Chappelle, and I think, you know, it's almost like I actually go, you know, everything you just said I agreed with, to be honest. Like I think for me it's not necessarily, I don't feel like I've really got something to prove as far as like, you know, my affinity with black people. You know, at the end of the day, I think I'm just this weird white dude that grew up in a very white area, but I listen to nothing but hip hop, you know, listen to nothing but black comedians, black people I find successful. Even beyond that, you know, I remember growing up and I seeing the Malcolm X film and just being so inspired by this amazing, you know, powerful black man that kind of overcome his adversity. And as I said before, like really, I just grew up having a lot of black people as my heroes and people I really admired. Now, does that mean that I had the black experience? You know, no, and I don't claim to have had that. And like I said, I kind of agree with everything you just said, to be honest. But I really, what I'm trying to say is just, it's like, I really mean no harm. Like, and I don't claim to be like an expert of black culture or black people. Like, you know, my topic area on my channel is hip hop music, rappers, that stuff I'm interested in. And realistically, like when it comes to that stuff, you know, I do have a good knowledge. You know, we're talking 25 years plus of just me listening to nothing but hip hop and like learning about hip hop, learning about the lyrics. I don't claim to be like some sort of a black culture expert, but at the same time, I kind of, you know, I grew up on that stuff, even though I wasn't from that area. So I'm kind of a messed up, weird, random dude. I really am not trying to claim to be anything I'm not. And, you know, I really don't mean to offend anybody with the things I say or the things I put across. And I'm quite open-minded, man.
And
so,
I don't,
you know,
I don't necessarily, right, with the King Von thing, and that's what I'm saying, right before the King Von thing, I'm literally in building saying, look, I need to hire this guy. Like, I need to hire this guy. I got some things I want to do with this guy. I like how he does it. I want to pitch him some things and let him kind of get it together, and then we bring it back to the network. Like and then the King Von thing happened. But before King Von, let's go back. I still want to know how you got onto Jay-Z. If nobody around you's listening to it, how it crept into your Rolodex.
Well, that's the thing. So to be fair, so I had two older brothers, right? And bear in mind, so I moved from London, South London to like Croydon from when I was about 5 or 6 years old, right? So my older brothers, they were like, I don't know the exact, like 6 and 10 years older than me. So they grew up in London, right? So they were more urbanized as far as like living in the city, living in a much more multicultural area. So they were into like a lot more diverse range of things, not just hip hop, but they liked hip hop. They had a few hip hop records. They were into skateboarding, surfing, just more shit that was more city type stuff. And for me, I think it's just the hip hop's the thing I latched onto. You know, I had an older brother that he would make hip hop beats. You know, we moved from London to this kind of small town. There was nothing going on. And, you know, my brother would mess around on Logic making beats. And I thought that was really cool. You know, I would steal his records and, like I say, listen to my Jay-Z, listen to my, you know, these up here. I don't know if you know these. This is the like Raucous Records kind of collection.
Yeah, I seen all that back there. Yeah, that's dope.
And these are some of the first records that I ever had of like, these are records that I stole from my older brothers and were spinning like Pharoah Monch, Eminem, like early stuff. And I'd have been I think that series is like 99, 2000. So, you know, we're talking like, I'd be like 7 or 8 discovering this stuff for the first time. So I guess I would give it to my older brothers. You know, I had an older brother that used to make rap beats. My other brother, you know, there was a period of time when he was trying to kind of make it as a rapper and releasing songs and pressing records. And I was just super inspired by them and sort of the rappers that I was listening to, really. So in a way, I guess it's sort of like my older brothers having some hip hop records around, but like, they were they were into that shit, but I really just got obsessive and just took it to a whole other level. I didn't want to play football. I didn't want to surf or skateboard. I just wanted to listen to hip hop all day. And like, you know, I was when I was a little kid, even like I was a young kid, like 9 years old, trying to rap. Like I had my little raps in school, and people were like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, what is this?" But I just loved it. I just thought that was so cool. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to be. And I guess it's partly like my older brothers, partly the internet, because once I got these records and I kind of got into hip hop, and then the internet was around, I was just, you know, looking up all these artists, downloading their whole catalog. Let me listen to discovered Eminem and Jay-Z. Let me listen to every song they've ever made, every remix they've ever done. I was just sat there doing that all day, and that's how I kind of built up this hip hop knowledge, kind of by accident. But that's where that knowledge came from. And then many years later, you know, I tried to get into the industry. I wanted to be a video director for rappers. So I was kind of working with just local rappers and rappers that I met in London to like shoot their videos and try and help promote their careers and stuff. And, you know, I just wanted to be close to hip hop. I honestly, at the time, I never really would have even imagined I'd have ended up doing what I do now. But, you know, things just kind of unfolded in a weird way. But yeah, it just all came from the music and just being a kid, just loving hip hop, really.
And you know what? You got onto the music early, and I can hear that, right? I want to know, when did you get into the content part of it? Like, not necessarily the music, but hey, I think I know enough about this stuff. I'm gonna say something, right? When did you get there?
See, that's an interesting story, right? So it's just a funny one. It might not be what you expect, but so I moved to London when I was like 18. You know, I was studying, making music videos for rappers. It was kind of like I was trying a lot of different stuff, and I actually started doing stand-up comedy. So, you know, I was going around in London, like going to these nightclubs, because as well as rappers, like people like Dave Chappelle, I looked up to comedians too, like a lot of comedians that I just thought were dope. So I wanted to give that a try. So I got into the open mic circuit in London and started doing a bit of stand-up comedy. And it was, you know, I'm saying I was doing it a bit, but I wasn't really going anywhere. And then I kind of started getting into making YouTube videos. So I was making more like comedy sketches, like with my friends. You know, I kind of like, so I got a homie that I knew from Brixton, which, you know, well-known spot in South London. But, you know, me and my homie Satonye, we knew each other from doing stand-up comedy. And we just started doing these sketches. And, you know, some of the content we made sort of almost had this element of like, you know, he was a young black guy from Brixton. You know, he's half Nigerian, half Jamaican, and I'm sort of this nerdy white guy from the south of England, but I am obsessed with hip hop. So we did a few like comedy sketches of like kind of almost that thing, almost like a black guy and a white guy living life in a different way. Like me and him did this comedy sketch where he took me to like the Nigerian food spot and he's eating with his hands and like I don't know how to eat the food and shit, right? And so like me and my homies were just doing stuff like this. We were getting no views, like it wasn't going anywhere. But we were just trying to do this whole comedy thing. Like, you know, my pal Satonye, he's a great guy. Shout out to him. You know, he was another person super inspired by people like Dave Chappelle, you know, other great black comedians. And he was kind of doing his stand-up thing. And me and him, we were just trying to make it, basically, like running around London, trying to make it in the content game. And the funny thing is, you know, YouTube just wasn't going anywhere for me. But I just kept trying. Like every year, I would just be like, let me do another sketch. Let me do a reaction video. And over time, I started doing a few videos that were hip-hop related, but it was kind of more UK stuff, funnily enough. Like, you know, I don't know if you know Skepta, sort of the big grime rapper in the UK. He's one of the biggest guys in the UK, but like, you know, I did a few reactions to like, he would drop a new music video. I'd sort of react to Skepta's music video. But again, I wasn't really getting views, like it wasn't going anywhere, but I just kept doing it because it was fun. You know, there's a big rapper in the UK called Russ. Not the American Russ, but we've got our own Russ. He's fire. Shout out to him. But you know, I did a video where I kind of broke down the history of like one of his music videos, and like he had this Lamborghini in his video, and I sort of told the story of how he got this Lamborghini, and it didn't really go anywhere. But that was like the first video I did that kind of had like some structure and sort of told the rap story. And I didn't really rock with it. I didn't think it was that good a video. But I had another homie that was doing videos, YouTube videos, sort of more like history type stuff. And, you know, people that know me in real life know that I'm obsessed with hip hop. Like, I'm the guy at a party trying to tell someone a hip hop story. Or, like, if there's a song I'm trying to be like, oh, you know, like, did you know this about this song? Like, did you know Jay-Z, like, sold 1 million records of this album? Or this happened or that happened? Or, like, Gucci, like, did you know Gucci Mane beat a murder case? I was that guy. And my homie just said to me, like, well, you know, why don't you take some of those stories that you're always telling people and do it in the video, like your Russ video? And it's kind of funny because at the time, I said to the guy, I was like, I don't think people are going to rock with this nerdy white guy with glasses talking about these, you know, real ass hip hop stories. And I kind of put it off. And then eventually I just said, you know what, let me make a story. Let me make a hip hop history video, see how that goes. And I did the video about how Jay-Z shot his brother when he was 12 and just kind of telling that story. You know, that was just the story that really stood out to me of, you know, hearing those lyrics when I was a kid and thinking, wow, you know, that's crazy. That's a circumstance, like shooting your brother when you're just 12. Like that was something completely out of my conception. And it was an interesting story. And I made that video, and, you know, that video ended up performing better than anything I had ever done. And I just kind of was like, damn, like it was the opposite of what I expected. You know, I was kind of surprised people were even interested. And from there, I just kept going. You know, I started doing videos on all kind of different topics. You know, I did a video on Frank Ocean and how he kind of finessed the record label for $20 million, sort of when he did his album, to get out of his deal with Def Jam. You know, I did a story about how Jay-Z and R. Kelly had beef. I did a breakdown of like R. Kelly's whole case. You know, I did a breakdown of the situation with Young Thug and Lil Wayne having a beef. And it just slowly, like, I was just doing the stuff that I was interested in, stuff that was in the news at the time. And it just slowly started building up. And, you know, like I said, I think it was that Frank Ocean video about how he kind of, yeah, that was the first thing I got that got like 1 million views. And to be honest, that was just, you know, that was really mind blowing to me. Like, I would have never thought I could do a video with 1 million views. You know, everything I'd done up until that point, we're talking like 50, 100 views maybe. Right. So that was like, you know, that was very eye opening for me. But that's the story of how it kind of came to be. And really. Then
so that reward of the 1 million views said, hey, let's stick here. I mean, because I'm in content. I know what it's like when everybody's posting me and all this shit's going crazy. My phone's going like it sends off shit in your head. It's like a reward, man. This shit is. It's almost, I can only imagine what rappers feel like when they go on the stage and everybody's screaming and hollering and shit. It's just like, that's why they chase it. That's why you see them at some point start to make bad decisions, because I want that feeling back, man. You know, and us as content creators, we got to be careful that we're not somewhat chasing that same ghost and trying to sensationalize some of these things. When did you find would you say you are infatuated with King Von?
I'll be honest, I would, and I think a lot of people are. You know, I think King Von is an artist that captivated a lot of people. You know, when Von was alive, you know, and he was really on the run of his success, you know, releasing his mixtapes back to back, quickly becoming one of the biggest artists in the game. I think a lot of people became obsessed with Von because he was a great artist and he had a fascinating story. And I probably would say that I don't think I'm obsessed with him in a sort of twisted, creepy, you know, King Von tattoo on my face kind of way. But he was definitely one of my favorite artists. He was somebody that his backstory was just insane to me. You know, he had so many lyrics saying, I've got 7 bodies, I'm about to catch another one. You know, I was listening to this guy and he was so good at rapping, and I was just listening to these lyrics thinking, how can this be, like, this can't be true. This guy is so cold on the mic. He's saying he's killed all the ops. He's saying he's killed 7 people, and he's got charting on Billboard. Like, how is this possible? And I probably did get a little bit obsessed with his music and his story, to be honest.
Yeah, and would you say obsession is not healthy?
Probably not. No, and you know what? I would say that in general, I think, you know, I don't want to. I mean, look, I can throw my hands up and say I think I probably even before I made the video, I think I was obsessed with King Von's music, because there was a time when all I wanted to listen to was Von. I didn't want to listen to nobody else, because Von was the realest, the rawest, the coldest rapper, had the best beats. All I wanted to listen to was Von, and that was probably before I'd even done a video about him, you know, back in 2020. Because I did, bear in mind, I did 3 videos on Von while he was alive, and you know, at the time, you know, that's a whole other story. But like, that was a time when I think Von was really the trending topic in hip hop. He was the guy.
Now, so let's go back a little bit. So, all right, King. So you saying that you would say that you have some sort of obsession with King Von. Now, when you went to reporting on King Von, do you think your obsession, the obsession of the, because to me, what I'm hearing from you, right, from my side, because I've been involved in everything this culture has to offer, from the dope game to the criminal shit to the jail to the month, whatever this culture has, I've endured it, right? So when I'm speaking to you, I don't hear hip hop. I hear you obsessed with the criminal aspect of the culture. It's almost like that's what draws you in. Have you ever been in a fight? Have you had fights and stabbings? Have you shot somebody or been shot at, or do you know any of that kind of stuff?
So okay, let me just, I'll answer all those questions. I would say, you know, I would disagree that I'm obsessed with the criminality side of it. You know, I think the thing that got me interested in Von to begin with was the music. You know, it's always the music. I don't go looking for just like random shootings and then like hope that somebody is a rapper.
Well, hold up, hold, Trap. You said that the lyric that stuck out to you from Jay-Z was that he shot his brother. That's literally one of the first things you said that stuck out to you. Wow, he shot his brother. I'm telling you, I'm a listener, so I'm not someone that's just gonna say these things as a I got your moment. I'm not into that, right? We having conversation. I'm literally listening to what you're saying. So you said, hey, yo, the Jay-Z thing, right? Jay-Z, man, he was such a lyrical guy, but what really got me, he had to shoot his brother. And I got to thinking.
But what I would say is that I am obsessed with Jay-Z, but I was already a fan of Jay-Z for years before I made that video and before I, you know, covered that story. But like, I've covered a lot of Jay-Z stories. You know, bear in mind, I've got a video about how Jay-Z cut his deals in his, you know, his alcohol businesses to become a billionaire. Like, I'm also obsessed with Jay-Z. I'm probably as obsessed with Jay-Z as I am with King Von.
So let me ask you this.
And I think Jay-Z,
how different,
sure,
rapping wise, is King Von from Jay-Z? Because if you like Jay-Z's style, him and King Von are day and night. So the only thing they have in common is rapping about the criminal elements in a way that's believable.
That's not. I don't know if that's true, because I think
we're debating. Again, let's go. Yeah.
I'm down though. I'm down. I think as well, it's sort of like, I think you're picking a specific point to focus on, and I understand, because that's the topic and the theme we're on. But I think, you know, I think when you look at, if we were going to do a comparison of Jay-Z and King Von as artists, I mean, that'd be really, bear in mind, like, you can tell I'm obsessed. Like, I love this shit. Like, that's so interesting. Like, because I think when it comes to Jay-Z, look, as far as I know, Okay, Jay-Z has never killed anybody, right? The story is he shot his brother at age 12. His brother was apparently, you know, on a lot of drugs, causing problems for the family, stealing. He was the story of Jay-Z shooting his brother when he was 12 was a really interesting story of this young dude who essentially had to boss up at 12 and become the defender of his family, which is a crazy story, which I guess in a way does bear similarities to King Von, because I think the situation with King Von is, you know, especially at the early stages when we can get into this as a separate debate, but like, you know, if you believe that King Von did kill people, as he said in his lyrics and his tweets, you know, I think when that begun, that was a kill to survive situation. I think Von was defending himself. He was defending his life. He was defending his family's life. And I suppose that's what Jay-Z was doing in that situation where he
these are the circumstances for our culture. This is what I'm trying to tell you. This ain't music. This is an element of our culture that involves at a lot of times a criminal aspect to it. Right. And we just so happen to be, some of us so happen to be so dope, we can rap about it, you know, but that particular part of it seems to what draws you in, because the way Jay-Z raps is nothing like the way King Von raps, yet you are obsessed with both of them. Go ahead. Let me tell you
why, because bear in mind, this is really interesting. I love this. So I think what's really interesting, and I kind of touched on this in my video, is that you're right. You've got these two guys, Jay-Z and King Von, that essentially they both grew up in really difficult environments. You've got the Marcy Projects in New York. You've got O Block in Chicago, Parkway Gardens, right? They were both in these situations where they essentially had to fight for their survival. And at some point in both of their lives, they realized and they decided, you know what? Instead of this life of crime, at least in Jay-Z's case, you know, his thing was he was a drug dealer. A lot of his early raps, Reasonable Doubt, Dead Presidents, it's kind of drug dealer mafioso rap. You know, drill music hadn't even been invented yet, right? But the reason I look up to Jay-Z so much, and I'd say I'm obsessed with him, because he made a change, and he said, I'm going to get out of the streets. I'm going to become a rapper. I'm going to get into the industry, and I'm going to kind of become this businessman. And he got the hell away from all of that kind of the drug dealing in the streets. He made himself a success through his music and became a millionaire. And I think what's really interesting is like when you contrast that with King Von, and I think we'll get into this, but this is why I find King Von as, you know, just to be completely honest, I don't think King Von is necessarily someone to look up to, because I think that you've got someone like Jay-Z where he beat the odds and he broke the cycle and he got out of that situation, became a millionaire, focused on his business, built billion-dollar businesses, became very corporate. Whereas I think if you contrast that with Von got out of the streets, became a millionaire, but it would seem, based on the research that I did, that Von simply was more interested in the beef. He wanted to keep funding the street war. He wanted to arrange hits.
That's what I would disagree with you, because from outside of our culture, you cannot speak to what he was interested in. You see? Sometimes I want you to know this, brother, from Loon, right? And we're debating, so I want you to say whatever you want to say so we can have a conversation in an open way. But I'm telling you, King Von wasn't as rich as probably you think he was to be able to get out of that situation. The rappers, what I don't think you've picked up along all your research of hip hop in our culture is that most rap shit in the culture, they con men. They playing con man, they confidence man, right? Whatever they just got to sell it. They got to be able to sell it to the consumer. I don't think that somebody like King Von, Jay-Z, I don't think they're the same. I believe that, again, the only thing that they have in common is the criminal element that they both had to face, because our culture provides that to us. Even rapping, just think about the rap style, totally different. Think about the beat selection, totally different. Think about where they come from, totally different. The accent, totally different. Jay-Z, like you said, as soon as he had an opportunity, because he was old when he got his money, he was 28 when he got his deal or something, so he was already an established man. King Von is a young man that's still kind of hooked to this shit that they done start calling Chirac. This shit is a mess up here, homie. This shit is something you can't just check out of this. That's what I'm saying. You don't just turn this game off. This ain't something King Von just can walk away from, right? He don't got the money Dirk had, in my opinion. He don't have the money Dirk had, and I know because I know what it take to get from that. The resources he would have needed to get from that place, I don't think he had yet. But let's not move too far into that. Let's go back to what is the parallel things between King Von and Jay-Z that draws TrapLore Ross to being somewhat obsessed with both of those guys. Outside of, if it's the criminal element, I need you to acknowledge that and understand that, oh shit, it ain't the hip hop. It ain't really the music shit. I'm starting to glorify a culture that I don't participate in. Because if you are breaking the deals down, if you are breaking, Joe Budden broke up, Frank Ocean $20 million finagle, or Jay-Z even shot his brother, like that's even something but when do you get to this place? You see what I'm saying? But let's focus on Jay-Z and King Von. I'm so obsessed with that conversation. Let's stay there for just a second.
Look, I'll be honest, I do kind of disagree with what you just said, because I think, firstly, I personally think King Von did have the money. He bought his mother a house outside of the city. And bear in mind, I feel like everything you just said, that King Von, he couldn't have possibly got away. Why? How comes Chief Keef did?
Got away. Chief Keef had real hits, man, and he was rich a long time. You ain't give
Von was having hits.
Give him the time. These hits nowadays need time to stream well. They need time, bro. They need time. This shit for it to get a lot of streams, it needs time for these guys to get this money and see this money. King Von wasn't in that situation, bro. Chief Keef, even if you look at Chief Keef and King Von financially, we talking Chief Keef got on when Kanye West was rolling through, really active in music. That's a long time.
Yeah, but nah, listen, Von stayed independent, and he tweeted that he was turning down multi-million dollar deals. Don't tell me about tweets, bro. He could have taken a multi-million dollar deal anytime, and Chief Keef signed a bad label deal. So Chief Keef was kind of down on where King Von was.
That's not true. Chief Keef had hits. He's been a part of producing. He's been a part of too much, bro. He's been a part of too much. King Von didn't even get a chance to get all his features going. He didn't get a chance to really get his feet under him, bro. I ain't talking about the little features like with rap niggas I just run into on tour. I'm talking about he didn't get a chance to really plant, to really get a good run at the music. Him and Chief Keef financially, that's not a good conversation. Dirk and Chief Keef, Dirk is smothering Keef. But as far as King Von, he didn't have enough money to run away and just check out the game. He didn't have that kind of money. And you're talking to me about tweets, and it's almost disrespectful, but I'm a content creator, so I know I got to deal with this, right? It's cool. I accept it. But, bro, I'm telling you from experience, I had to come out the trenches, my nigga. I come out of this. These niggas don't have the money you think they have, and I'm the nigga they used to come borrow from. They don't have what you think they have, brother. They con men. That's what you ain't. For you to have studied our culture all this time and not know rappers are lying on the mic, or not know that rappers are tweeting bullshit. A lot of them don't know their business. A lot of them in bad deals. These rap dudes are not what they portray to be. But I understand it. When you that far away, you have no clue.
So you're saying Von and Jay-Z, it's all cap?
No, Jay-Z, no, what do you mean? It's not all cap. I'm saying the amount of money that Von needed to be in a situation to check out the game. A game that's been developed in a city in America, the powerful country in the world, called Chirac, because it resembles war. Young men being killed. For him to check out of that game, he need a certain amount of money, my brother.
How much?
I don't know. It depends on his family. It depends on how many kids he got. You know what I'm saying? Then it depends on his information, what information he got. Because maybe he had enough money for a nigga with some information. But a young nigga with no information might need a $20 million play to feel like I can really leave from around here because he don't know no better. And dude, trust what I'm telling you. Dude didn't get enough leg room, man. He didn't get to live with those hits long enough to really get to see the money that you probably thinking he had. And turning down a multi-million-dollar deal says nothing to Loon because it's about the terms, not the money. Anytime you get into this business, you learn that it's never about the money. It's always about the terms. So they may have gave him a multi-million-dollar deal to own all this shit. And he's like, no, that don't make sense. Right? So, again, that's my opinion.
Listen, he allegedly had $100,000 to spend on getting his enemies assassinated.
You think that's some
allegedly.
money?
Listen, if he's got the money to arrange hits after he's already a millionaire, I feel like he has the
All
money
right,
to get out of that situation. That's just how I feel.
Let me play into what
We're talking about Von. We're just talking about Von, though.
Right.
I'm not trying to make a blanket statement about the whole community.
Yeah, let me play into what you're saying as if I'm King Von. And of course, this is alleged. I don't believe this stuff to be true. Anytime I'm speaking to a white man,
we'll go into that next.
Anytime I'm speaking to a white man, ain't nobody killed nobody. Nobody ever killed nobody when I'm speaking to a white man. You hear me? So we can answer that. But I want you to know about the King Von thing. Let me play into what you're saying that he spent $100K. That ain't no money, family. Nigga, $100K for me, if I gotta knock a few people off to feel safe around here. Because see, that's the thing that I think again you're not paying attention to, right? Once they mark me, it's almost like in one of these video games, they got a bounty on me. If I could take care of somebody that got the bounty on me, that might send a message to calm everything down. So some of what I do may be out of safety, but I don't even believe half of the shit that's been reported to the internet. I don't believe that. I don't believe. So we can move on because you can't answer I got hella answers. But you can't answer what similarities do Jay-Z and King Von have.
I answered that already. They both came out of difficult environments.
So it is the criminal. It ain't the rapping.
No. So I didn't say anything about criminality. I said they came out of difficult environments where they were disadvantaged.
Difficulty causes you to be in criminal activity.
I didn't say that.
I'm saying that because I grew up in difficulty. That's why I want you to. You talking to a member. You're not talking to a content guy. I'm a member. So I'm telling you, if I grew up in difficulty, I got to deal with criminal activity to get out of difficulty. That's part of what I have to do. So those two gentlemen did that. What about the music do they have in common that draws you to like those two individuals? Seeing that you cited Jay-Z shot his brother at 12, that was one of your first stories, and King Von beef and his shit is you've been attached to that for a while. Help me understand the similarities.
Well, that's the thing. I think I did kind of touch on this, but I'll kind of go at it again from another angle, which is, the thing that really attracted me to Jay-Z and a lot of other artists is that success story.
Hold on, can we do them together? Say the similar. Can we? Because you'll get me over
they
in this Jay-Z
thing.
Like,
they are different artists, different people, and they're from a different era.
Right, but similarities. What draws you to? Yeah. Right, if you like Jay-Z, see, the more you like of this, the less you like of that. Right, if I'm in love with Jay-Z music. Oh my God, I love how Jay-Z just his style, his flow, and then the next person that I love is King Von. Is like, all right, what's the similarities there? Music wise.
I think that's kind of like a sort of you're creating like a sort of false fallacy because I love King Von and I love King Von's music. I love Jay-Z's music. I love Lil Yachty. I love Yeet. There's future songs that I like.
Story, a Yachty story. I see Von
got a couple
of
Yachty stories. I got Yachty.
Okay. I haven't
done Yeet. I might do Yeet soon. do Yeet soon.
So, but I'm saying music-wise, can we get any clear, distinguishable? What are the similarities?
I feel like I've given my answer, but you're not accepting it.
Okay, let's move on because maybe the people will say, "Hey, I got the answer," because I don't hear it. I'm not hearing hip hop when you say, "Well, they come from a different," the adversity.
Well, okay, let me just try and add a little bit more to that because I think maybe I need to just communicate a little bit more context because I think they both come from these difficult environments, and if I get to the next stage, their music, Von's music, and Jay-Z's music, and hell, Lil Durk's music too. These artists that I'm really into, the music gives you a window into that environment. I didn't grow up in O Block. I've never been to the Marcy Projects. Maybe one day, who knows? But listening to this music, like listening to King Von's music and Jay-Z's music, they're both amazing rappers. Like, say what you want about what Von did in the streets, but when he got on the mic and he started rapping, he was amazing. He told amazing stories, vivid, deep storytelling, which you could definitely say the same thing about Jay-Z. And they would build a picture. There's old Jay-Z songs and there's King Von songs. You put on the headphones, you shut your eyes, and you listen to that description of roaches on the walls, you know what I'm saying? People fighting outside the front door in Marcy or whatever. And he paints a picture and I haven't been there. I can't say I know what it's like, but I would listen to Jay-Z songs and King Von songs and it gives me a window, like an insight into this lifestyle that these guys are living. And it's those stories those pieces of art that they've made, which is a talent, a skill. Like Von was a talented artist. He was able to paint a picture of O-Block so that someone like me that had never been there would maybe get, you know, a small percentage of understanding of what it's like what he went through and his story. And both Jay-Z and King Von, through, I think, painting these pictures of the experiences that they had been through, that talent was rewarded by the music industry, and they both became very successful. Now, we disagree on how successful Von became, and, you know, that's fine, but I think that's the thing I just want to communicate, is it's the storytelling and the artistry that I think puts them together. Because let's be real, like, no disrespect to anybody, but the artistry of, say, a King Von and a Rondo Number 9, it's on a different level. The way King Von told a story and painted a picture is above damn near 95% of Chicago rappers, full stop. Right? Von was a legend because of how good his art was.
So I know some people gonna say, Loon, his hip hop card has to be revoked at this point. He's comparing Jay-Z music to King Von's music. This is, I mean, can you tell me any similarities between drill music and drug dealer music? Like this is not a comparison, bro. In my opinion, and I'm saying I'm a hip hop baby, so I gotta put my side out. Like that's your side. You feel as though some storytelling that King Von is doing, you know, aligns with what Jay-Z did. When I say Jay-Z did drug dealer rap, he did struggle drug dealer rap, and King Von is doing drill music. I don't see any.
But that's a struggle. Drills, you know, the drill music is about a struggle. Bear in mind, drill music developed over, like, you know, 10, 15 years after the kind of mafioso rap. Because you've got someone like Jay-Z, right? Jay-Z's music influenced a new generation of people like, let's say, I don't know, Rick Ross, who, you know, I know you're saying a lot of rappers are phony. I'm
not going to say they're phony. I say they exaggerate. They're con men. Not phony. They just exaggerate.
But Rick Ross is probably a perfect example of that. As they say, he was a corrections officer, but then he's on the mic talking about he's selling 100 kilos of coke, right? So he's a good example of that. Whereas I think Jay-Z's more authentic, but regardless, you got someone like Jay-Z, and that form of like mafiosa gangster rap is sort of evolving. Then you have people like Rick Ross emerging.
But that involved into Rick Ross. That didn't involve into King Von. What King Von was the evolvement of a Chief Keef. Yeah, right. So again, Keef, this is what.
But bear in mind,
these are not fruit. Hip hop has fruit off trees, right? There's fruit off. And you say you study hip hop, so you should know that. Like when you look at the Jay-Z thing, you see a Ross, you see a Meek, you see this is the fruit off of that J tree. What King Von landed had nothing to do with that, with the drug dealer mafioso style rapping shit. Right?
That's but the thing that bridges them together, I would say the thing that bridges those two genres of music together is trap music. I'm talking like 2006 Atlanta, like Gucci Mane, because the whole trap music era of like Gucci Mane, you know what I'm saying, all of his different trap music type things, even like T.I., the sort of like rubber band man, that was all about drug dealing. But I think over time this Atlanta wave of trap, where you had like Gucci Mane catching a murder case, and then he's jumping on songs talking about go dig your partner up, I think trap music over time became quite violent. But that was born out of sort of drug dealer rap. Then you had people like T.I., Gucci Mane talking about we're trapping in Atlanta at the Texaco.
Gucci Mane,
and then that genre of music was alone, violent.
Right? Gucci Mane was alone in that. Trap music was rolling.
Man.
Who else was like really dissing, doing something? He kind of started the wave. He really didn't. Nobody else was really doing that in the South. You had Tip doing drug dealer rap. You had Jeezy drug dealer rap. Ross drug dealer rap. Everybody just was kind of rap, or they were dancing. Nobody else was doing the diss shit. The diss shit.
No.
Go ahead.
But that's what I'm trying to say is that, like, in my opinion, this is just me. I'm just cooking here off the top of my head, right? And
me too.
If I'm wrong, fair enough. But it's a good conversation. But I personally think, if I was just going to give my honest opinion, I think it was trap music that came from the kind of gangster rap, mafioso rap, where you had people like T.I., Jeezy, then the Jeezy Gucci beef escalated into violence, and then I think trap music became slightly more violent. But then it was like, Chief Keef came out, you're talking like 2010 in Chicago, but he was not the original first person to do drill. Like, you had a guy in you had a guy in Chicago called Pac-Man that was creating what was called drill music, and that was like heavily Atlanta inspired to begin with, because a lot of these early Chief Keef beats, they're kind of like really sort of hard, sort of like reformulated versions of trap beats,
because
like
the South run
drill
the game.
beats.
You got to tap into the South to be effective, right? We got all the ears.
But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
So
I think
you're
you
talking
had
about
people
the beats. I'm talking about the content. So the content, when you dealt with the Gucci man, he stood on a mountain alone dissing. He was dissing because that beef did allegedly turn into something. So he was dissing. Nobody else was dissing, right? Now.
But when this is the thing though, is like when Chief Keef first came out, the music wasn't necessarily all about dissing. And I think this goes back to what I was saying about why Von, I think, is a good artist. Because I think the same reason why Chief Keef was such a good artist is when he came out in like 2010, he's dropping songs like 300 or like I Don't Like. Those beats, we're talking like young chop beats that are kind of, they're quite Atlanta focused, but then they're sort of like, they've got their own completely unique original flavor. And those songs originally, like Chief Keef at the start, he was repping his crew, but he was never dissing. The whole Smoking Tuka thing, that didn't come until a couple years later, right?
But so they were drilling, right?
Genre got more
When they're
violent.
talking about drilling, like, see, in the South, again, it was drug dealer rap. It was, got a Bentley on 24s. Yeah, it was that. Up there, it was looking for them niggas with the heater. Yeah, what them niggas, it was like I'm hunting, I'm outside, I'm with the shit. That's you talking about beats. I'm talking about content, right?
But that's the thing. I think I'm trying to talk about it holistically, but I think both things influence each other. But I think you're right. When Chief Keef was first picking up steam, he wasn't drug dealing. He wasn't making money. He wasn't riding in a Bentley on the block. They were just, they were just sitting around saying that they don't like the ops, basically.
It's
but
like,
that's the thing. But he was the originator. That's the thing. I think it's important to remember that I think the beats were influenced by Atlanta, and it's sort of like 2006 Atlanta era, trap era. That was the biggest thing. Chief Keef kind of came along. He took elements of that. He put his no spin on it. It's all Chicago. It's all about violence because he's growing up in that environment. And then over time, Chicago drill became the biggest thing going, and it got more and more violent. But Chief Keef's earliest songs, they're not all about dissing and drilling. A lot of it's just sort of about, we're on the block, we're smoking, like giving people what's the word, like a window into his environment, like we're growing up in Parkway.
What I was hearing is like I don't like and all of that shit was a bunch of young niggas with guns. They had never seen no shit like this. This had never, nigga, what? Bunch of niggas with AKs and SKs and videos talking about we looking for them niggas bet not come over here with that bullshit. That's the fruit that King Von came up under. Right? I'm telling you that's something totally different than what was happening in the South. We will show you the big cars. We'll try to show you the house that ain't ours, the Bugatti that ain't ours, the Bentley that ain't ours, somebody necklaces that ain't ours. We trying to make you bite into it. Up there, them young niggas look dirty with them choppers.
But the thing is, I think all of these different eras of hip hop over the years have influenced the next. And then even between that, between the sort of like trap Atlanta wave and the Chicago drill wave, then you've got people like, there's been a whole long history of a lot of music coming out of like Louisiana, New Orleans, the Cash Money, Lil Wayne stuff, which that was a really interesting era because that was more like the bling era, Cash Money. It was all about showing off diamonds, cars, the Bentleys. But then there was also a little bit of an undertone of violence of, this creating, painting a picture of this environment, the Magnolia projects,
culture,
bodies dropping,
not violence. Culture.
In
You view it as violence from the outside. It's culture from the inside, right? All right.
Sure. No, I agree. But that's the content of the music, and I'm only saying that. I'm only pinpointing that violence as to say that came before we had someone like Chief Keef. I don't think Chief Keef was the first person to ever think, I'm going to hop on a song and say I'm going to shoot someone. He wasn't
but
the first person to
blatantly ARs, AKs in the video, bet knock, that was the first time this was ever seen. That changed Chicago. That whole wave right there changed Chicago, and Von them was under that. They come up under the world that shit was created in. Down south, that wasn't happening yet. Now it's happening. Now our young niggas got the. I'm telling you what I know. See and that's what I'm saying, bro. I'm telling you, I'm a member of this. I'm telling you what 100% I know in the South. We was not rocking like that. When them young niggas done that, it turned our young niggas up. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. And I think something that I want to say that's really interesting that maybe people miss. Look, you can tell I'm no gang banging dude, but at the same time, when I moved back to London, I didn't have a lot of money. I lived in an area that was kind of rough. And essentially, before my YouTube channel really took off and went anywhere, I actually became, you used the word earlier, obsessed. Maybe that's the right word, maybe that's the wrong word. But I was living in a hood, let's say, right? I was living in a block that was affiliated with a very well-known group of drill rappers in London called 410, right? I was living in their area and beginning to learn about all the music and the stuff that was going on in the area. Like, these guys have a music video that they filmed like in front of in the building that I lived in, right? So I was sort of living in London and experiencing, and bear in mind, all of the London UK drill originally, it was heavily influenced by Chicago drill. So bear in mind, we don't have guns as much in the UK, but we've got guys with music videos where they're holding knives and machetes at the camera. It's the whole gang in balaclavas putting all of that stuff into their music. And there were a lot of murders in the area that I was living in. And, I would go and sort of see the crime scene and then go and hear about the song that was talking about the murder that had happened in my area in London. But a lot of that stuff was influenced by Chicago. And what I'm trying to say is that I actually agree with what you're saying. I'm not saying I was involved, but when I moved back to London, I was living in an area where this kind of drill music wave was taking influence. And that was something that, to me, that was like, it was very interesting. It really made me reflect on the influence of Chicago drill, because if you don't know too much about the UK drill scene, it's so heavily influenced by Chicago. And you've got a lot of these young guys in the UK and London running around with knives, trying to do the Chicago thing. They want to get known for killing their ops and rapping about it.
Well, at least for over here, again, see, I have respect for culture, so I can't say why they doing it. But over here, I know that it's a fight to get out this shit. So if they think that I get turned up if I'm a real one, if that's what get me turned up is that I stick by what I say, then they gonna do that. You see, and they lost in that, right? Let's talk about because we'll move on from the Jay-Z and King Von thing. Let's speak about when you got to a place to make the King Von documentary. What made you name King Von a serial killer?
Yeah, so I had covered King Von when he was still alive. So I did 3 videos about Von, and in one of those videos, I mentioned the whole situation with KI, where he had years of history beefing with this girl on Twitter, saying that he wanted to kill her, saying that he was trying to catch her, saying that he'd beaten her up. Whether or not you want to believe the stuff that's said on Twitter is real, A&E made a documentary about King Von and KI, and he was in the documentary talking about their beef. And, I covered that story whilst King Von was still alive. And that was actually before the Chicago police had come out and said that, they believed that he was the culprit in that case. So I had covered King Von and it's in my No Jumper interview with Adam 22. But essentially, this was when Von was alive and Von and his crew pressed me. They got in touch and they were going to take my channel down. They did 3 copyright strikes on my channel. They said my videos had songs in them, Von songs, which they didn't. And they were going to take the channel down. And, they got in touch with me and they basically said to me...
Was this after the documentary or before? This is the earlier stories.
This is 2020, when Von's alive, because he was like tweeting around about this stuff. But they basically said to me, like, if you go in the channel dashboard and edit out any of the mentions of this girl, we'll let you have your channel back, basically. And I was kind of shook. I was like, okay, I'll do it. I did it. They let me have my channel back. I was like, I'm not going to talk on Von again. Shit got too real, to be honest. But the weird thing that I found is that, as time went on, I'm not covering Von anymore, but his star continues to rise. He gets more and more famous. He's Billboard charting. He's performing huge venues. He's catching this case with Lil Durk. And so time keeps going on and more Von lyrics are coming out. And like we said earlier, I would say that I did become obsessed with Von as an artist. I became obsessed with his music. Anytime Von dropped a song or a feature,
you say that
I
like
to listen.
You do know that's not healthy though.
Listen,
obsession is not healthy, Trap.
I agree. I don't think it's normal to make a 3.5 hour video about anything. So I'm a weirdo.
Okay,
and I'll take that.
That's legit.
I'll take that.
You a gangster for you keeping it gangster.
It's not normal, bro. I'm not a normal dude. So that is what it is. But as time was going on, I was seeing more and more Von songs come out. And let's be real, like whether or not you believe Von did anything or did the things he said, he was dropping. He dropped like 5 or 6 songs where he said, I have 7 bodies. There's I think it's the Audio Mac freestyle. He says, let's talk about bodies. I got several. And then in the ad libs, he's saying, I got 7. He's got that other song where he says, let's talk bodies. I got a few, 3 plus 4. What does he say? 4 plus 3, 3 plus 2. He counting his bodies. He's got another lyric where he says, he's talking about, I don't want to say the word, but it's a word beginning with D that's used to refer to lesbian women. But he's saying, I shoot everybody in the N words and the D words in this bitch, saying he shoots women. And over time, because I'd already done research into Von's story and got in trouble for it, I was kind of thinking, like, I can't believe he is still out here saying this stuff, saying more stuff, and just like, I was watching it thinking, any day now, this guy's going to catch the RICO and get arrested, surely. And that's just as a fan. And so I was honestly a big fan of Von's music. It was heartbreaking to find out that he died, when he passed away. That was very unexpected.
Von, but hold on. Man. Do you believe everything that rappers rap about?
I don't believe everything rappers rap about.
So you do believe that there's some room for lies, for lack of a better term, for exaggeration in raps?
Absolutely. And, we spoke a minute ago about Rick Ross. Rick Ross was one of these artists where it sort of was an open secret that he was embellishing his past. But here's the thing that I find really frustrating about the bad reaction to my Von video. When Von was alive, all anyone wanted to talk about was Von is the realist. Von really about what he says. Von the realist. Von really did this shit. And so for everybody to kind of come out now after I've analyzed his lyrics and say it's all cap, it just to me seems really disingenuous, because the whole point, the whole appeal was that Von was real.
Let me answer that. Real in comparison, right? A lot of the rap shit's so fake. If he 20% of, if he 10% of what he was saying, he really see that again. It's off. You really don't know what you're looking at, right? You hearing it, but you don't know what the backdrop is. I would say that it's in comparison. When I say I'm the richest nigga in the room, that's right. Until Baby walk in the room, I'm talking to my dogs. I'm the richest around this motherfucker. Till Lil Baby show up, he the richest. Till P show up, he the richest. Till J show up. You see what I'm saying? So it's in comparison to. So people who know rappers, who have been engaged with rappers, have found themselves engaged with Von and said, oh, he a little different than these rap niggas. These rap niggas. Because when you get behind the scenes somewhere, you probably never haven't been yet, right? Because your journalistic, the way you do your thing could get you some places. You might not have been there yet, but once you get behind the scenes and get to see, oh shit. Right? And not that all these rappers are fake. I want you to know that they are not running criminal enterprises. They don't have, a lot of these guys were not the biggest dope boy even in their own neighborhoods. So for even Von to be a shot caller where he come from, it's just he different than these rap niggas. Cause these rap niggas come up under somebody most time. Right? So I think because Von came in with a little bit of rep on this belt, whether that's as much as you believe it to be or as little as other people believe it to be, just having some in comparison to most rappers places him as amongst the realest in the game.
I get what you're saying. I do agree with you. There's different levels of realness, and there's people supposedly with more bodies than Von. Like you say, Von's not the biggest
bodies
killer that's ever been alleged.
I know
out
you.
Here.
I hate this.
No, but that's the topic.
Go ahead.
That's the topic. Like, and I appreciate what you're saying, and there is a spectrum of realness when it comes to rap. You got your Rick Ross, you got your Lil Babies, you got your King Von, you got your Take-A's, okay? And so there is a spectrum, but come on, man, you can't tell me that when King Von was alive, people were saying he was 20% real. The whole appeal, the whole marketing real. Package for King Von was that Von was 100% the realest out. That's what everyone said. Come on.
But again, you guys from outside the culture, your scales are off. When people are saying he's 100% real, he's real, what they're saying is in comparison to the rappers. He's not the realest street dude. He's not the biggest killer in the world. None of that shit. And we don't talk about killings. I even hate talking about that kind of shit, right? But
Von did. Von loved talking about killings.
But again, I believe Von to be an artist. I believe Von to be painting some picture from where he come from. I believe the circumstances around Von, what he saw was that detrimental to his vision. I believe his mouth to be just a portal from what his mind have seen. That's what I believe. I don't know that him had been doing all of that, bro, without any conviction of those things. That's me. That's me being in the trenches. You ain't never been to the trenches. And I'm trying to get you to understand that when they say that King Von is one of the realest, or he the realest in the game, these rap dudes do as flawed shit as to give you their phone number and then don't answer the text. You know, these rap... what I'm telling you, they not talking the criminal element that I believe you to be talking about. Now, here's another element to it I want you to understand. Most of these guys broke. So when they go do Say Cheese TV interviews and Cam Capone interview, they need that check. The Vlad, they need that check. I'm going to say what need to be said to be booked. I need to be booked. I'm trying to pay my bills. Now, I ain't putting no whole bunch of, I'm going to put a little something on it. I ain't going to, but I'm going to say what need to be said for him to bring me back, and we build on this. You know what I'm saying? So I need you to understand that everything ain't with no convictions. I'm curious as to how you got to a place where you were able to put all this together and call this guy a serial killer when you went from making content to giving niggas diagnosis.
See, here's the thing, right? I feel like this is where we're going to get into it, because I just think it's so wrong and disingenuous for all of these people to come out and essentially gaslight the victims of Von and act as if these murders never happened, because you've got at least 7 people who are dead, and Von, sure, he wasn't convicted. This is the funny thing. People keep saying, oh, the Malcolm Stuckey murder, Von was put on trial, he was never convicted. Fine, but he said he killed the witness. And, there's to a certain degree, if somebody doesn't get convicted of a crime, that's one thing. But if they're saying, I got away with it because I killed the witness, I think at a certain point, you just have to say, okay, there's more to this than just were they convicted or not. Because Von's on a bunch of songs saying he killed 7 people.
You can't call these people Von victims without any conviction. How can you do that?
You can, because I think there's more ways of proving whether or not something happened. And bear in mind, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not trying to convict Von.
Well, that's exactly what you're doing, Trap. When you're saying his victims, you're convicting them.
I'm proving his own lyrics. He's on a song saying I've got 7 bodies, and I'm saying, well, who are they? Let me look into it. And I've looked into it. I found them.
You
and
think
I'm saying,
you found them? He never named anyone.
He's tweeting.
He never named anyone.
Yes, he did. He's always saying all these different people that he was smoking on. He did. He's on Twitter talking about who made Crack World, and a guy called Crack got killed days before, and he's tweeting
well, that's Chicago culture. That's another poison that's in the water in Chicago. They do that kind of shit. Like, I can tell you right now that they got people that's on RICO charges and shit because they on the phone saying shit that ain't true. They on the phone flexing to their homeboy. Man, I've been doing good today. I made 100 racks today, boy. That shit is being you.
But that's not Von. Von was the realist.
Was he a realist? If he was so real,
if Von was alive, if Von was alive, then you were calling him cat.
Take him at his word, though.
You know what I'm saying? How would he react?
At his word. A lot of those clips you cut out, right? A lot of those clips when he was talking, when he might say, "How many bodies I got? How many bodies I got, y'all? How many bodies I got?"
He swore on O.D. Perry's life. He swore on O.D. Perry's life. He got more than 5 bodies. This is what he's doing. I want you to look at what you are pulling from what he's doing. And I want you to say what's disingenuous. Yo, how many bodies I got? Look, y'all. Look, they said I got, look, they put 5, 6, they put, the motherfucker said I got 7. Ding, 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 they right, I got 7. Nah, I'm just playing. You cut out the nah, I'm just playing. That's not what he said. That's not what he said. He said on O.D. Perry's life, I got more than 5 bodies. I'm talking about,
in a lot of those clips, he would say, I'm just bullshitting. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. You would take that out the clip. You would just take the front part when he would say, nigga, I got 4 bodies. They better quit playing with us. And he might say, I'm just playing in that same clip. You ignore that. But yet you taking him at his word.
He swore on his closest homie's life that he got more than 5 bodies. Like,
that don't mean nothing, bro. You don't hear, listen, and I ain't talking about Von.
If you swore on your closest homie's life, was that?
Have you ever sworn on somebody's life? Who?
Yes.
You ever had somebody die that you swore on their life, like in the field, in some kind of street war or something like that? You ever did that?
No,
all right, so I want you to check out of this one because you ain't never done this one.
I feel like if we take a step back, right, I think there's just something important that I really want to communicate, which is it's like, I understand where you're coming from, and I think you're rightfully trying to give me an education on how you see this with your cultural perspective. And I do respect that. But I also think that it's important for you to see things from maybe an outsider perspective and say, if a guy is running around saying he killed 7 people and he's got a whole industry behind him saying this guy is the realist, he is no cap. At what point, as a group of people that are fans of music, say, look, Von was supposedly the realist. He said he killed 7 people. Here's the names of the 7 people that died, and he's tweeting, ha ha, 6 shots to the face minutes after they died. At what point can we all just say, look, like as a community, we've got to put our hands up and say murder is wrong, right? You got whole
murder is wrong, and I'm not caping for Von because I don't know what he done. I'm telling you though that you don't know what he done, and anything said without context can be misunderstood. So
Von told me what he did.
No, listen, Von ain't told you nothing. Your obsession told you everything. Right? Von ain't communicated nothing with you. Your interpretation, you calling these people victims, you diagnosing this man without any convictions or any real evidence based on your understanding of a culture you're not a part of. Here I am, an outstanding member, telling you that it's cap on rap shit. Outstanding member. And you won't accept it.